Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Beard of KarmicTools.com, and this is the special bonus podcast for Chiron in Aries that I'd like to talk about. And most of you know that I don't usually allow my audios to go out raw and unedited, but I am very pressed for time. So this might be just enough to wet your whistle and for you all to let me know who wants to go deeper with a free call where we can dive into the real meaning of Chiron and Aries specifically and what that will mean for all of us. For right now, I think I'd just like to put it on your radar that it is an asteroid, or at least I consider it an asteroid in my training, and it has a 50-year cycle that has a bit of an erratic orb. So the way that I explain the planetary cycles, which most of you know, and if you don't, cycles and patterns are my thing. So all of them can be tracked really easily with our ages and stages of life, except for Chiron and Pluto. So the way I explain this is that Pluto rules death, rebirth, and transformation, which basically takes as long as it takes. And Chiron rules our healing, education, and soul work, which takes as long as it takes. So we can't rush that. It is very unique to our individual blueprint. I initially studied about Chiron with Barbara Hand-Clow, and so I am one of those. I do subscribe, let's say, to Virgo being ruled by Chiron versus Mercury. I include Mercury because it does rule processes and things like that, but once I got to know Chiron, I could really feel that rulership for Virgo, and it allowed me to embody the 6 planets in Virgo I have in a much healthier way. So I give you that to just ponder and see how it feels to you. But these are aspects of self, and one of the things that I say is the healing, education, and soul work are the purest forms of self-love because no one can do those 3 things for you. This is pretty much my life's work, is dedicated to some aspect of those dimensions for all of us, for us as individuals. I'm a big believer if the individuals get it together, the globe will be okay. But also in my training with Barbara Hand-Clow was that her research showed that at this time on Earth, basically for those folks who are alive and well and here to talk about it, most humans alive at this time have their Chiron, numbers-wise, in the end of the zodiac or beginning of the zodiac at Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus. So the fact that we're here and we've just come through Aquarius, Pisces, now Chiron's moved into Aries and it's going to move through Taurus. That means it's literally stimulated most of the humans on the planet. So that gives me hope that we've tipped the scales in favor of healing and wholeness and integration and self-understanding and self-mastery and really becoming the multidimensional beings we're capable of, being the regenerative creatures we're capable of, the resilient creatures we are, the adaptable creatures we are. This is part of your gift for being a soul in a body. So no matter what kind of body you got, it's got special powers in some form or fashion, I believe. And Chiron is that mythical creature that connects us to that part of ourselves too, right? So there are some phases that are related to Chiron. The alienation in youth is where it starts. And it's a good time to just kind of reflect on your own teenage years and what happened. Were they positive and uplifting and cheerful and wonderful and accomplished and, all good things? Or was it traumatic and tragic and dark and challenging and really hard? Teenage years are a bundle of both, right? But there's a place at that time where we do get wounded. It's bigger than the everyday things. So what you want to think about is, what is the theme, the common theme or the common denominator that runs throughout your own issues around learning and education, how you learn, how you process and understand information and then make your decisions based on what you've learned, how you do your own healing process, how much power do you have, or do you give away your power to doctors and external entities? So I've always been a really big believer that you know more about your body than any doctor will. So you have to be able to communicate that. And then the more I learn about the body, the more I realize what a system it is, what a multidimensional system it is. And the better we get to understand it, the more we realize all the different ways it communicates with us to teach us about ourselves and the world around us and what it means for us. And we're in a zone right now where, especially with Chiron and Aries, we have to learn how to do this for ourselves. So that's another thing I set up my space for in terms of supporting you all the best I can, is in your individual soul work and healing work, because that will make you stronger for your communities and for your families and for the things that you're trying to get accomplished. And that ripples out. I don't feel like I have that influence to reach that many people, but I do feel good about reaching you one at a time the way I do. So I like that. And I hope that you all will want to get together to do a call on this, because it's so juicy when we dive really deep into the mythology and the history and what we can do with it as it navigates each sign. So you don't even necessarily have to work with it directly, although I recommend that you do. Finding out where your Chiron is really helpful. So this is what I decided might be useful for this particular audio, because everyone will get to hear it and not everyone will probably decide to do the call. But I wanted to share a couple of resources, articles that I have that will help you as well navigate each sign in each house as Chiron moves through it. But before I get to that, I wanted to complete my thought on the kind of the bigger picture about Chiron. So as I was saying, it takes as long as it takes to do what it's got to do, right? And it's a process, and it's something that we do deal with. And we start with that childhood wound, whatever we can connect with. And then it's when you realize the wound was an accident, it wasn't intentional. It's something that violated you, that you've come to work out and to clear some karma around and to do some wholeness on. That's really vital for your next go round. And at the same time, you can do a little bit of this no matter where Chiron is, right? If you just put your awareness there. So the realizing that it was an accident is the forgiveness piece. No matter how the wounding really happened, and most of the time with this one, it's not an accident. We've been violated in some really deep way that makes our soul flee, basically. Our soul needs to protect itself. So when we have multiple traumas, it can really, really hide deep down inside. And it takes shadow work and healing work and some deep psychological work, which Scorpio time is always good for. And we're moving into Sag, where we make meaning out of everything that we've sort of figured out at this point before we define our terms for the new year in Capricorn. So this is also a good time to be checking in with ourselves, especially after 2020, when so many wounds have been triggered. So many traumas that we've only imagined have now experienced, right, in some form or fashion. And for the empaths, intuitives, and psychics, it's a lot. That's the water signs are Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer. So you have to be mindful when you're working with water that you can pick up all these different sounds and vibrations that may or may not be close to you. They might be further away than you thought. They might be closer than you thought. Like your perception is off sometimes. So right now, we're tuning into, with Chiron anyway, the willing sacrifice to heal and transcend the pain. This is when I say turn your wounds into wisdom, right? So part of the healing process and why it's associated with education too is because whatever hunt we go on to heal ourselves, to make ourselves whole, to figure out and learn what we need to learn, that's part of the bonus material. That's what we get for our journey, and that's the medicine essentially that only we can magnetize and only we can find in our trails when we pay attention, right? So working with Chiron ends up being really important for self-mastery and self-love, because it is the part of you that needs to heal yourself that no one else can heal. No other healer, no other guide, no shaman, no doctor, no nurse, none of it. You are the healer. Everyone that you bring in to assist your healing process is a valuable team member, and they have something valid to contribute. Don't get me wrong, but you open the pathways within your body, mind, and spirit and soul to the healing. that's possible for you this lifetime. And Chiron's the one to go to when you're healing something and you're really conscious of it, or you want to be conscious of it. You want to be more aware of your wounded places, and perhaps you need better boundaries to protect them until they're a little bit more healed. That comes up as well. But this is the zone that Chiron rules. And at the same time, every year it retrogrades, giving us a chance to kind of turn inward and tend to ourselves on an annual basis. So there's other ways we can work with it. The other kind of big thing about Chiron that I love is that it's the connection between Saturn and Uranus. Its body moves through the sky in between the last visible planet and basically the personal planets that we know about, and the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Chiron is right in the middle. So the way that I work with this, especially in cycles and patterns and life stages and things that we work on in my world, that is, if you get your truth and story together, what you believe to be true or possible, leads to being able to anchor and create the reality and the structure that you are comfortable within. And Jupiter and Saturn are basically your truth and purpose. So as you make those connections to your own truth and purpose, you get to Chiron and you do the healing, education, and soul work that basically unifies everything about your personal individual self. That's why it's such a big deal to turn 50, because this is when you get to heal your individual issues and isms and things that you've come into this lifetime to work on personally. But the next level is Uranus, awakening, liberation. Neptune is that spirituality connection to God. Pluto is that utter transformation and transcendence. So in order to get to those higher levels, we have to get our truth and purpose together, and we have to go through our healing and educational process in order to get to the ascension, get to the higher levels, get to the awakening or the liberation or the connection to spirit and source and all that is, right? So in order to get to those higher realms and really make the most out of them, we've got to have a little bit of sense of self around what we believe to be true and possible. And that's the Jupiter cycle. That is a 12-year cycle that moves in 3-year increments. And you'll hear me say, you learn something a little bit every year. Jupiter spends 1 year in a sign, and you stack 3 years back to back. You've really grown in your consciousness. That brings a pivot point in your story and perception and beliefs, and your whole perspective changes every 3 years if you pay attention. And once you start to co-create with it, it gets really juicy. And if you're a Sagittarius sun, moon, or rising, working with Jupiter like this gets even more wonderful and beneficial because it is the one that bestows blessings. So you want to know this cycle for anybody. But then if you have a good relationship with Jupiter, even the better. Saturn's a 28-year cycle that moves in 7-year increments. So our cells slough off every 7 years, and we get to regenerate ourselves on a physical level in a literal way. So if we would just connect that with our own environments as well, and making that connection to the earth and becoming the stewards that we were intended to be, and learning how to live on less or live with less and to do more with less, is all part of human ingenuity that we're definitely awakening and trying to bring to the next level there too. But we have to heal first. We have a lot of trauma and chaos and things to overcome before we can really get to that garden place, get to that awakening and liberation, right? And Chiron's the key to it all, I think. And maybe it's just because I got those 6 planets in Virgo and it's all my 10th house. So it's career and what I'm known for and everything. So I'm all about the healing and education, right? And the soul work is just so important. And understanding your own system, like that's the Virgo piece. Virgo is all about the natural rhythm, the order that nature puts things in. Not anyone else's order, but nature's order. That means right timing, divine timing, sacred timing, however you want to look at that. Virgo rules that. And the quality control, keeping things natural so that we stay healthy, right? We're earthlings. We need the earth. We need the dirt. We need microorganisms. And there's a balance to this. And there are seasons that come along and throw that balance out of whack. And there's ways that we can supplement and compensate and do better in real time for ourselves and each other if we even are aware, right? That you could work with Chiron this way. But it's a really big deal to consider looking into where it is for you. Like I said, if most people have it, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Aries, Taurus, that means that we had to heal the humanity piece and the community connection to all. We get into Pisces and we realize how one we are, right? Think of the years, just the last 10, within the last 20 years, we've been through this Aquarius Pisces piece. And it really got us aware of our individuality, but also our connection to the whole, where we are wounded as individuals and where we're wounded as a collective. And we've been working on all that for the last 20 years. As it segues into Aries, again, the work gets more personal, individual, and focused on you in a way that hasn't been possible for 50 years, number one. But also think of the convergence of cycles that have the world awakening at this moment, at the same time that Chiron goes into this zone that says, figure out how to do it yourself. Because if you can do that, and now I'm going to go forward, I feel like if we can master healing and holding ourselves and making ourselves whole again, and being able to teach and help others who have been down similar paths, that's so powerful. But as it shifts into Taurus, then we really get to heal our relationship with the earth. But it's almost like if humans don't get themselves together, I don't know how they can do anything for the earth. I don't know. But it's all working in various dimensions all at the same time too. So I trust, and I do see glimpses of progress and possibility that I just love to send light to and nourish, because I do believe that we have tipped the scales toward healing, and that Earth herself can regenerate and heal herself if we ease up. And if 2020 didn't show us anything, it showed us that just the human imprint to hit pause for 5 minutes can shift the waters, the air, the soil, all of it got a breather this year, not just us. So for those of us who've been holding our breath, I get it. I think we should start to exhale and breathe in the new level of consciousness and the new life and path and direction you want to go on. And part of it is accepting Chiron's process, right? And knowing that there is a healing process to your earthly journey, and understanding that it might come up again and again in different guises to help you master it and learn about it from different angles and perspectives. So like I said, I am going to move through. I've got some goodies to share that I'm happy to link. If we do the call, I'll do it in the post-call goodies, and you all can have these articles yourself. One is Chiron Through the Signs and Houses by Brandy Jasmine of aquarianage.org. So she did an article that is just really sweet, short and to the point, and is perfect for my timing right now of what I'm trying to upload for the podcast. So let's do it, because this is going to give us Chiron through all of it to help anyone listening. So you can learn about your own Chiron, which is pretty easy to find. cafeastrology.com has easy ways to look stuff up. I think there's an astro.com for free charts, things like that. There's ways for you to figure it out. And of course, you can email me, kelly@karmictools.com, and I can tell you where your Chiron is by sign and house. And if we do the call, then I will give you that in your post-call goodies. Most of you know that's what usually includes the part that's individual and customized for you. I'll send out the link to everybody that we did together, but then I do email you one-on-one with the goodies that apply to you, so that you can take everything that we've talked about on the call and apply it in your own life. And I just like that compliment. We need to all be aware of our individual, social, and collective levels here. But this one, she says, Chiron in Aries, or the first house, is an exercise of self-discovery. You will often find the natives speaking of their spiritual quests, the need to find personal meaning and awareness and existence, okay? Some cope with their early wounds by withdrawing. Others overcompensate aggressively. This is Aries, or if Chiron lives in the first house for you. While the latter group may be courageous trailblazers when there is a personal investment in the spiritual process, unless there are other spiritual aspects in the chart, their spiritual seeking rarely extends beyond a purely personal quest. There are associations between head wounds, headaches, and other head area injuries with an afflicted Chiron in Aries, but one should look to other aspects for confirmation. Okay? So this is where it's at right now. That's why I said I think if we tend to our own wounds, deal with some early childhood things that we might not have cleared, and figure out your personal quest. Like, people are so other directed, caring about what everybody else in the world is doing, when we need to look in the mirror. Then Chiron in Taurus, or if it lives in the second house, it can manifest in these ways. And this is all just kind of a little teaser. This placement seeks comfort from the physical material realms, money and sex. This is when I say food, sex, and money for the Taurus and what they're healing. And I do have some theories on all of it. They may have unusual sexual interests as a result of deprivation of appropriate physical affection or sexual abuse in early childhood. Sometimes they become teachers or counselors with the subject of interest related in some way to the aspect of life they felt deprived of in childhood. They can be powerful teachers of the lesson of self-worth if they can overcome their own self-esteem issues. So deep breath. Chiron in Gemini, or if it lives in the third house for you, has to do with the nervous system, communication skills, and ability to tap consciousness are all key words of Chiron in Gemini. There can be early injuries to the voice or painful shyness that comes from an early problem with self-expression. You may find that these people take their time with their thoughts and words because they want to be certain that they express themselves correctly. Later in life, they may express themselves with painful precision to overcompensate. Deep breath. Then if you have Chiron in Cancer, or lives in the fourth house for you, this makes you feel like a fish out of water. That's part of the alienation. They often express feelings of otherness. Some joke about being adopted or being space aliens because they feel so different from their home and cultural groups. There can be indications of childhood abuse, abandonment by the father, and early childhood trauma if other aspects support this, or there are hard aspects related to family. Chiron in Cancer can indicate difficulties in starting one's own family later in life. Some actively refuse to start families of their own because of their early life was so insecure. Deep breath. So you're healing that childhood wound again, or that caring, nurturing principle. If it wasn't done right, we don't always know how to do it for others. So we have to heal that in order to be able to do that better. Chiron in Leo, or living in the fifth house, is similar to Chiron in Cancer, but it comes from a different place. It has a Uranus influence, making them identify strongly with the otherworldly mystique of science fiction. At some point, Chiron and Leo will face an ego crisis where they discover and draw the firm boundary of will and ego that they need to survive. They can expect difficult Saturn returns because the experience completely breaks down their ego and forces them to rebuild with a new sense of purpose. Grounding exercises and relaxation therapy can be helpful during periods of stress, and creative hobbies can also help. Strangely enough, many of these people will deny they have any creative skills, but talk to their friends and you'll discover a hobby or a craft that they should be giving more time to. Deep breath. So that Leo creative spark, if we heal that, we serve the world in such a greater way. If your Chiron is in Virgo or lives in the sixth house, this can be a tough placement because you have the wounded healer right in the wounded healer sign in place. This is the whole double whammy. So it's all related to health and well-being. So naturally, health issues come up. The precise manifestation can often be tracked through your chart, basically, any aspects to Virgo, Chiron, or the sixth house. Stress and emotional reactions can aggravate health problems for these people, and they have to be careful with diet and exercise. Those with hard aspects could also become compulsive workaholics who express their creative potential with kinky sexual behavior. That's a new one. You all will have to report. I need you guys know I'm a tracker, so I like to hear from you. Chiron in Libra, or if it lives in the seventh house, she says, this placement indicates some kind of wounding or rejection related to relationships. Because this person is sensitized to the emotions and reactions of others, they may be quite sensitive and even psychic. They definitely need to learn grounding principles and need to demarcate strong boundaries between themselves and their loved ones to prevent or stop a cycle of codependency or abuse. Okay, so the Chiron in Libra is working out conscious equal partnership. Unfortunately, they tend to define themselves through others, through those they relate to, and they are often disappointed when others do not rise to their expectations. They may find art and past life therapy to be helpful in their personal and spiritual growth. Yes, Libra is the inner artist for sure. If your Chiron lives in Scorpio or the 8th house, this is somewhat akin to Dante's Inferno. The path to growth and life may come through repeated experiences with the great mysteries of life, death, birth, and transformation. These are the powerful mystics whose inner visions dominate their life path. They may have empathic and psychic abilities which are sharpened through their experiences of profound insight. This is Scorpio realm. They may suffer deaths and losses when Chiron is adversely aspected, but each loss will be followed by benefits or insights that boost them to new levels of understanding. Deep breath. Scorpio is the energy of karma and creation. Everything that we create has a consequence and a vibration that goes out and affects others. So when we're healing that, we're also healing our power to do that in a more clean way. Chiron in Sag, or if it lives in the 9th house, indicates a wounding or a break with the traditions or spiritual teachings that you had in the youth, perhaps. These people find that life is one continuing spiritual crisis, and they are often on the edge of their spiritual thinking. They can be drawn to atheism on the one side or fundamentalism on the other. But regardless of what they may say, they are passionate believers of one sort or another. They are almost never true agnostics. They are avid students and make excellent teachers. So, of course, yes, Sag in the 9th house is the eternal student in teacher mode, the researcher of life that thinks it's all fascinating, even when it's tragic and hard. And so we need a little bit of that. We need to heal our consciousness or heal our ability to be positive. That's all wrapped up in that as well. If you have Chiron in Capricorn or it lives in the 10th house, it can be similar to a sun in Capricorn in that it emphasizes the strong need to strive for a prominent place in society or with their careers. So they may be workaholics to the point of obsessive dysfunction because they feel so strongly motivated to justify their self-worth. This often betrays an early childhood rejection, possibly by the mother, even when both parents are dead, this person can still be trapped in an obsessive desire to prove their worth. Unfortunately, if they don't eventually come to understand this motivation, they may never feel secure no matter how many awards line their walls, no matter how much money is in their bank accounts. So Capricorn tends to connect their own self-worth and value to their accomplishments. And that's fine. But if it, like it says, if it comes at the expense of other things, that can be a trap. And something that we come in to heal with Capricorn is our sovereignty and our inner authority to hold our own lives together, for it to be a worthy life, right? So the more responsible we can be for holding our own, the less interference from authorities outside of ourselves then we'll have to deal with. If you have Chiron in Aquarius or it lives in the 11th house, these folks may seem utterly otherworldly. They may be drawn to technology in order to feel comfortable, safe, and accepted. They may avoid social interaction and feel uncomfortable in large groups of people, mainly because of peer problems in their youth or because they seem odd or different to their peers. Social rejection makes them withdraw into only those groups of people who share their interests and concerns, and they currently find great comfort in the opportunities provided by the internet. That's what I was thinking too. But Chiron in Aquarius, the one that we did in 2009, I do have an audio for that if anyone's interested. The Healing Trinity, because Chiron, Jupiter, and Neptune were all in Aquarius. Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, Chiron has a 50-year cycle, and Neptune has a 165-year cycle. So for them all to line up in Aquarius at the same time was allowing us to heal something for humanity, I believe. And we did a lot of groundwork in 2009 around that. But that's what it's healing that part of you that is your unique genius and that is different and wonderful. And we need it to function. But we have all been wounded by being different or other in some form. And sometimes it's a little deeper for others. And I would imagine these folks feel it the most. The last one, Chiron in Pisces, or if it lives in your 12th house, is a little hard to describe because the crisis it creates is on the level of universal consciousness. There are often religious or spiritual crises related to this placement because the native feels more connected to spirit or God than to physical or material planes. The native can be drawn to angelic imagery, and they are often psychic, empathic, or exhibit healing ability. Depression and drug usage are a risk because these individuals are so psychically sensitive. Working to help or heal others can be healing to this placement, but it can also be harmful if they are not sufficiently mature to handle dealing with the stress. The native can benefit from the study of psychic protection. So, deep breath. In Pisces, we're healing that sensitivity and boundaries level. So this is what we've just come through right before it got to Aries. We had to heal the sensitivity and boundaries so we could protect ourselves and know what we were going to do when we got to the Aries place. So this was really just a way to wet the whistle, get you interested. There are so many things we could talk about that would be really fun. And at the same time, resources, I've got umpteen articles. Here's another one. If we're going to talk about just Chiron and Aries and how it can play out, this one is by Venus Astro. Healing Chiron and Aries, owning your right to exist. She says, here are 7 ways that Chiron and Aries can show up in your life. 1 is people pleasing. 2 is disappearing the real you. 3, not having a voice. 4, not making the money you deserve. 5, getting taken advantage of financially because you can't stand your ground. 6, picking partners who just aren't good for you. And 7, staying stuck and not knowing when to move on. Ooh, deep breath. So that's a lot. That's really powerful stuff to work on. That again, no matter what your placement is, no matter what your personal placement is, this is happening in the sky, affecting us all socially and collectively. So we can call in this vision for ourselves and each other, that we learn how to stand up for ourselves, speak up for ourselves, negotiate up front for ourselves. This is all solid Aries parts. It's shadow Aries to be other directed. That's Libra. That's natural for Libra. It's not natural for Aries. So when we get to people pleasing, we know that we're imbalanced. It means you don't feel worthy of the fair exchange. We got to balance that out. Disappearing the real you, again, not feeling like you have a right to exist, a right to be here. Not just with Chiron in Aries, but I have discovered with other planets in Aries, we do have past lives of war. So there's a part of us that feels like we have to fight for everything. That's something else we're healing right now, that need to fight for everything. There really is enough for everyone, no matter what the press will tell you. Okay, so there is enough. We just have to get our distribution together. Not having a voice, like I said, not being able to speak up for yourself, not making the money you deserve, again, with your own self-worth, knowing what your gift is to bring to the table. Again, this comes up when I talk about Aries a lot, because Aries is the energy inside us that can get things started, but it's not the energy inside us that keeps things going. So we want to be able to negotiate our worth and value for what we actually contribute. And I've done that in the past, where I love change and I'm not good at doing the same thing day in and day out. And so for a while, I was a freelancer helping people open their businesses and open their physical offices back in the day when we had physical offices and when computers first came out. And I would do all the setup. I would find the office, get it rented, get everybody, get all the furniture in there, get the people hired. I'd help with the hiring process, interviewing, all that. Finally, the computer, get it all set up, and then I'm out. Because I didn't want to keep doing that. I don't want to be an administrative assistant. I knew that was my gift, and I could charge for that, right? So I was making the money I deserved for the gift I could bring to the table, but I wasn't misleading them by letting them think I was going to run their offices, right? Getting taken advantage of financially because you can't stand your ground. Again, negotiating up front, standing up for yourself, all wired into that. Picking partners that aren't good for you. Again, there is this part of knowing yourself that can be so valuable when introducing yourself to others. It really, really can. And staying stuck, not knowing when to move on, staying over long. We talk about this a lot in the Venus circle. because we do our release work for 9 months, and we're kind of in the middle of that right now. And so you start to look, when you investigate, you realize there's different aspects of our lives where we stay over long. And maybe if we stay on Chiron here, the healing process has been something that's been on the back burner. But if you just give it a little attention, even annually with the retrograde, your system will respond, I promise you. And it's a really useful piece of your chart to get to know. And it's something that in the old days, a lot of astrologers did not talk about or give you a lot of information on. But that is changing, and there are plenty of books out there, and I got resource lists and things that I'll share if you guys decide you want to do this. So if this actually makes it up to the podcast, I'm going to be so happy. Please know that this was a spontaneous, quick upload. Woo! Not the way Kelly usually does it. Let's just put it that way. So I'm looking forward to your responses, and I hope I've wet your whistle on wanting to know more about Chiron, and that you will join me for a free call, which at this point, I don't know when I can schedule it, but I will make an effort if there is some interest. So email me, kelly@karmictools.com. Reach out anytime, but certainly if you want to do this, and just shoot me a note saying, yes, let's do it. And I will figure out a calendar date and get back to you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of my community. Thanks for listening. This is Kelly Beard of Karmic Tools signing off.